Hi friends, this is Cassie. Welcome back for another Miss Ink Stamps video. Today we're going to be using the Brewtiful stamp set. We're going to use that along with our Frosty Flakes stencil. I just thought these would go very well together, so let's jump right into it. I have a piece of watercolor cardstock that I have cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I have a couple of distress inks. These are the distress spray stains, Walnut and Frayed burlap, and I'm just going to spritz those on there, kind of getting those to meld together. And they do look very similar, but it seems like one is a little bit cooler and one is a little bit warmer. And I'm leaving some of the white space, and I'm going to heat set that so that is nice and dry. And as it dries, I love all the splattery bits that are all over that background. I do pull out the molecule, or whatever they call that, for caffeine, and I'm going to stamp that all over the background. It does get lost in it, but it's there. I know it's there, and I wasn't sure as I was playing how this would turn out. So now I'll tack down my panel to that Frosty Flakes stencil, just using a little bit of tape. And I'm going to pull out some Glitz glitter gel by Gina. This is the iridescent, and mine is getting dry. So I'm going to pull it all out and squish it into that stencil. It does a great job. I'll spread it all over, and I will end up saving what I have left, seeing if it'll last for the next time I decide to pull it out or if it'll be dry. But I do have enough left over probably for one more card. So we'll scrape off all of that excess, stick that back in the container, and then we're going to clean up our mess, take our stencil back and wash it ASAP, because you don't want that sitting on your stencil. But check out that iridescence. I think it does pick up some of the distress spray stain background, but it's really pretty cool. So we're going to let that dry. I've cleaned up my mess, and now I'm going to take a couple of the stamps from the Brewtiful stamp set, and we're going to stamp that onto some Express It cardstock, because I do want to do some Copic coloring. I'll ink that up with some Blackout ink by Ink on 3. Stamp it down, and then I do need to stamp out the little steam, so I'll grab that and stamp it separately. And now we'll get to our coloring. So I'll do my best to put the colors up on the screen. We're going to start with some R17, and I am just taking a little creative license with these flowers, and we're going to color them red. I want this to be a Christmas thank you card. So since this is Christmas Eve, which happy Christmas Eve to all of you if you're watching today, and I figured it might be a little late to make our Christmas cards, but it's not too late to make a Christmas thank you, because we'll need those, right? For all the wonderful gifts you're probably going to get from all of your loved ones. So this was just the perfect stamp set for that. It has some great sentiments that basically say thank you, and we're saying thanks a latte. And so we'll put down that first color. Our next color is some R29, and I'm just going to use some flicking motions. That seems to be my go-to when I'm doing any sort of ink blending, is flicking motions, which is probably why I like the brush nib the best. So we'll do that for all of our little red flowers. And as I said, we're making a thank you card. Once that is done, we'll move on to our green, which we're going to use some YG67. And I am going lightest to darkest. I know a few of you have probably watched me a few times, and if you've watched me Copic color, you know I like to do lightest to darkest. That for me just helps me not use too much ink. I've explained that one before too, I think. That by starting with the lightest color, I tend to go a little bit lighter handed. But I know lots of you go dark to light and are very successful. So since this is a thank you, I guess that brings me to the question, do many of you send out thank yous after you get Christmas gifts? I typically don't, but I think that's because I'm mostly getting gifts from family, and I'm usually giving them a gift as well. So I reserve these types of thank yous for friends maybe that I haven't seen in a while that might send a gift, or an unexpected gift, something like that. So as I showed up on the screen, we went to our darker color, and then I'll blend that out a little bit. And now we're going to do our beans. I'm going to color these like coffee beans. So we've got some E59. And I do find it interesting that the E59 is actually lighter than our E49, which is why you can't really go number order. So then we'll come in with our E49 and bring in some shadowing. And then after that's on there, we'll blend it out a little bit. It's a little too harsh for me. So we'll blend that with the E59. And because our background, our iridescent background, had yellow hues to it, I decided to color the coffee cup yellow. So I've got Y32, and I'm trying to make it look like there's a little bit of a light, like the light is shining on that one center part. And then I use those flicking motions with the Y26, and then I'll go back over that with the Y32 and keep blending that until I'm happy. We'll bring those same coffee colors back in and we'll color the coffee. And then we're going to fussy cut all of that out. I need to stamp out my sentiment, which is "Thanks a Latte," and we'll stamp that right on just a scrap of some of the cardstock that I had left. And then we'll trim that out pretty simply. And now we're going to get our card base ready, which is just some green cardstock that I had in my stash that was cut down to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and I'll score it at 4 1/4. This is going to be a top folding A2 size card, and there will be a nice little green border all around it. And I'll play with placement, and then I decide that I want that coffee cup to be right behind our flowers. So I'm just going to put a little glue on the coffee cup and bring the flowers to the coffee cup. And then now I'll use foam tape all behind that. Because since this is using some Glitz glitter gel, you could use liquid glue that would hold it. I find that using like a tape runner is not going to work, but foam tape always usually does. So I'll peel off all that release paper and stick that down. And then we do the same thing with our sentiment. We'll put a little foam tape behind it and pop that in the background. It isn't going to need any more embellishing because that Glitz glitter gel is gorgeous back there. So now we can glue this panel down to our card base using some liquid glue. And then I do want to do a little stamping on the inside, so I'm going to grab the little X and the cup to make it look like XO, and I'll ink that up with some black soot distress ink, which usually isn't formulated for stamping, but since this is just kind of on a background there, I'm just going to stamp it. And there you have it. That finishes off our card for today. I hope you have a very lovely Christmas. Happy Christmas Eve. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And be sure to check out all that Miss Ink Stamps has going on over on their blog, Facebook page, and Instagram. And I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.